Tonight, the Senate considers President Muhammadu Buhari's request for fresh borrowing and approval of $4 billion as well as 710 million euros, part of 2018-2020 borrowing plan of his administration. Nigeria's president and his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame, advocate resilient Pan-African economy, just as the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, hints of plans to launch International Financial Center within the next 12 months. 114 inmates of the Kogi Correctional Center rearrested less than 48 hours after gunmen attacked the facility, 126 still at large. And Tropical Storm Nicholas batters U.S. state of Texas, causing life-threatening flash floods. Plus international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, Edo State is not relenting in its battle with the Federal Inland Revenue Service over VAT collection as it takes matter to the Supreme Court.
In sports news tonight, Nigeria's Aruna Quadri is ranked in the top 15 of the International Table Tennis Federation World Ranking, a new African record.
And from Abuja, death toll rises to 4 in the trade more devastating floods as more than 20 buildings are destroyed.
Begin with President Muhammadu Buhari's request to the Senate to borrow $4 billion and another 710 million euros from bilateral and multilateral organizations in order to fund the deficit in the 2021 budget. According to his letter read on the floor of the Senate by the President of Senate, the loan request is an addendum to the 2018-2020 borrowing plan of the federal government. President Buhari, who is also seeking approval for grant of components of $125 million, further explains that the funds are needed to meet emerging needs and that all critical projects approved by the Federal Executive Council as at June 2021 are incorporated.
The projects listed in the addendum to the 2018-2021 federal government external borrowing plan are to be financed through sovereign loans from the World Bank, French Development Agency, China Exim Bank, International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, Credit Suisse Group, and Standard Chartered China Export and Credit in this total sum of USD, American dollars, $4,476,863 plus Euro 710 million and grant component of USD $125 million. The Senate is kindly invited to note that the projects and programs in the borrowing plan were selected based on positive technical and economic evaluations and the contribution they would make to the socio-economic development of the country, including employment generation and poverty reduction, as well as protection of the most vulnerable and very poor segments of the Nigerian society.
Meanwhile, the President's request on borrowing comes as the National Assembly resumes for a new legislative year. While delivering his resumption speech at the Senate chamber in Abuja, President of the Senate, Senator Ahmed Lawan, says the National Assembly is instrumental to turning around the nation's economic fortunes. Our correspondent Terry Kumi has details and reactions from other lawmakers ahead of a new legislative year.
Federal lawmakers resumed plenary after adjourning for 8 weeks for their annual recess. During this time, a member of the House of Representatives, Mr. Omolafe Adedayo from Edo State, passed away. And as is customary, both chambers had to adjourn. But before the adjournment, President of the Senate, Senator Ahmed Lawan, reads his welcome address, highlighting the successes recorded so far by the 9th Senate.
According to the second quarter GDP report released by the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's gross domestic product GDP increased by 5.01% in the second quarter of 2021, strongest growth since fourth quarter 2014. This can be attributed to the early passage and subsequent implementation of the budgets. The National Assembly is proud to be a major factor in turning around the economic fortunes of our dear country.
He believes that the issue of insecurity is still of utmost importance even as a new legislative year commences.
Distinguished colleagues, the fight against security challenges in our country requires continued engagements between the National Assembly and the executive arms of government. It also requires continuous engagements with our citizens for the necessary and desired results to be achieved. We must therefore remain resolute and focused in achieving those. The National Assembly, indeed the federal government, has no more serious challenges to tackle than insecurity today.
The Ninth National Assembly prides itself in passing some critical pieces of legislation, such as the Petroleum Industry Bill and the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. There's also the public hearings on the Constitution Amendment, as well as the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy Paper, which have been concluded. So what's next for the federal lawmakers in the new legislative year?
The budget apparently will take our attention. It's coming up soon. And we need also to tidy up some of the issues surrounding the Electoral Act, which of course you know, so we have some discrepancies that we have to harmonize with the Senate.
Yes, we may not be able to achieve the number of bills that were presented in the last 2 years, but obviously we will not also rest in ensuring that Nigeria is safe to the best of our ability in terms of insecurity.
We have a myriad of problems confronting this country and its citizens. Poverty is on the rise, you're very aware. And very many Nigerians can hardly afford 2 square meals a day.
The National Assembly may also consider wading into the controversy surrounding the value-added tax, which is currently on the concurrent list. It is highly important for the National Assembly to quickly but meticulously conclude its plans, because 2022 is regarded to an extent as an election year, during which time the business of lawmaking is likely to take the backseat as members begin to seek re-election come 2023. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Staying with duties of the National Assembly, the People's Democratic Party Governors Forum have asked lawmakers to set up a conference committee that will harmonize the different versions of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill passed by both chambers, particularly the issue of electronic transmission of results. In a statement by the chairman of the forum and governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, they're appealing to the legislators to be guided by national interest. The statement reads in part, it should be noted that Section 52, subsection 2 of the House version says voting at an election and transmission of result under this bill shall be in accordance with the procedure determined by the Commission. The forum says the Senate's version, which subjects a decision of INEC to deploy electronic transmission to the decision of the NCC and National Assembly, is manifestly a usurpation of the powers of INEC and offends relevant provisions of the Nigerian Constitution that guarantees INEC's autonomy and independence. And for the governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, and the former Minister of Information, Frank Nweke Jr., more citizens' participation in governance is of utmost importance. They made the call at an event to mark the 10th anniversary of Budget, a civil society organization that specializes on fiscal transparency in Nigeria. According to them, citizens' engagement and effective participation in governance are key to achieving a robust democratic system that's accountable to the people.
Several advocacy groups gathered to mark a decade of critical analysis of Nigeria's budgeting system, organized by civil society organization Budget. One issue that continues to dominate conversations at events like this is how to open up the political space for citizens' participation.
Almost 3 decades ago,
Ekiti State Governor Dr. Kayode Fayemi joins the conversation virtually. He and a former Minister of Information, Mr. Frank Nweke Jr., urged citizens to hold elected political leaders accountable for their actions.
our pursuit of a more result-driven democracy that translates to meaningful developmental outcomes cannot be achieved without robust citizens' engagement and effective participation in public affairs. It is therefore time that we, the people, assume our authority and wield the inherent power to place a demand on good governance and institutional accountability.
In the transition to an open, transparent and more accountable state. Efforts have been made at all levels to reduce corruption by reforming erstwhile opaque and largely secretive financial management system. The added value in a civil society monitoring initiative such as this is the degree to which it empowers the broader citizenry to demand change from the elected authority by monitoring performance in an independently verifiable manner.
The open governance system is a structure that encourages transparency in government, with citizens having access to government data and holding leaders accountable. The Minister of Budget and National Planning emphasizes the need for civil society groups to collaborate with the government.
I think you need to work with us more as a partnership rather than being seen as an attack dog, because that doesn't help. Because if I see you as an enemy, then I'm not going to open my books to you no matter what you say.
The Nigeria civic space has opened up gradually in recent years, but the consensus at this meeting is that more young people need to participate and ask the right questions on the stewardship of political leaders.
And the federal government is making efforts to avert another strike in the health sector. At a meeting today in Abuja with the Nigerian Medical Association, the government queried the 21-day ultimatum given by the doctors to address the issues of hazard allowance, among others. The Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige, also faulted doctors for issuing such ultimatum, while discussions on the allowance is on the final stage. The Minister of State for Health, Senator Olorinime Mamora, appeals to doctors to shelve all industrial actions and plans to embark on such. The NMA Secretary General says the doctors expect that the federal government will withdraw the court case tomorrow and also tone down on the numbers of press releases from the ministry, as these are working against negotiations.
Even when there is war, war must come to an end at some point. So my appeal is to our colleagues that less ship is sold. And more so when the highest authority in the land has intervened. I think it behoves on us as people belonging to a noble profession of medicine to say, if for no other reason, with Mr. President's intervention, let's move forward.
We expect that because the highest authority, the President of the Federal Republic, has spoken, that also we appeal that the Federal Minister of Health should help maybe to withdraw the National Industrial Court tomorrow to help also the negotiation to be ongoing so that all of our interaction will not be subjudice. I also appeal that we tone down the press releases as it affects our engagement. Anybody does not want to engage in press war.
And to security, 114 inmates who escaped from the Kaba Correctional Center in Kogi State have been rearrested. This is according to the spokesperson of the Nigerian Correctional Service, Mr. Francis Onobore, who said the minister had directed an immediate search party response team to go after the escapees. He urged the remaining inmates to turn themselves in within the next 24 hours to avoid prosecution when arrested, adding that their photographs and biometrics were captured before they escaped. 240 inmates from the Federal Correctional Center in Kaba, Kogi State had been released following an attack launched by gunmen on Monday. In part two, after the break, Nigeria's president and his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame, advocate strong Pan-African economy. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. The Senate considers President Muhammadu Buhari's request for fresh borrowing approval of $4 billion as well as 710 million euros, part of 2018-2020 borrowing plan of his administration. Nigeria's president and his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame, advocate resilient Pan-African economy, just as the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, hints at plans to launch International Financial Center within the next 12 months. 114 inmates of the Kogi Correctional Center rearrested less than 48 hours after gunmen attacked facility, 126 still at large. And Tropical Storm Nicholas batters U.S. state of Texas, causing life-threatening flash floods. President Muhammadu Buhari and his Rwandan counterpart say now is the time to initiate plans to establish a resilient Pan-African economy that would maintain a common economic interest within the continent. Both presidents are among the African leaders attending the 2021 Banking and Finance Conference holding in Abuja. Our correspondent Kayla Megwa reports.
Thank you very much.
Since inception in 1963, the Chartered Institute of Bankers has maintained ethics and standards among banking practitioners in Nigeria. This 14th conference is bringing together bankers from across the country to examine the role of the banking sector in economic recovery, inclusion and transformation.
We also aim to x-ray issues surrounding digital transformation and how such innovative solutions can be leveraged to generate sustainable African businesses.
The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria unveils plans to consolidate the resilience of Nigerian banks.
Your Central Bank of Nigeria will, in the next 12 months, be establishing the Nigerian International Financial Center, NIFC. The NIFC will act as an international gateway for capital and investments driven by technology, payment system infrastructure.
President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria and President Paul Kagame of Rwanda remind the bankers of their role in ensuring African nations have economies that can survive shocks like the COVID-19 pandemic.
We need you, the banks, to drive value creation by developing new technologies, scaling payment infrastructure to serve the diversified economies expected to benefit from this agreement.
The African Continental Free Trade Area is creating new opportunities for Pan-African trade and investment. Banks with the continental reach, like several of the institutions represented here, can lead the way in cementing economic integration.
The Vice President, who's also the chair of Nigeria's Economic Council, would like the bankers to concentrate on achieving a mortgage system for the continent and pursue a financial system with faster economic growth.
The link between housing finance and economic development is already well established. But the challenge for full implementation of our mass housing program remains that the finance sector appears shy or simply have not found the right housing finance model that will work. Because we don't have a functional mortgage market, we are way behind in home ownership for that reason.
The role of the banking sector in economic development cannot be overemphasized. While the President and the Vice President are urging bankers to take advantage of the opportunities for economic growth that abound in the country, it's important that in the next 2 days that the bankers at this event focus on where the country should be and not where it was. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
The federal government is engaging new approaches to get more Nigerians vaccinated against COVID-19, one of which is through the churches. The executive director of the agency, Dr. Faisal Shoaib, who met with Christian leaders in Abuja, explains that the move is to ease the vaccination rollout across the country.
This meeting is between officials of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency and some Christian leaders, and the reason for the gathering is to explore the possibility of getting the message of vaccination to churches. Government officials appreciate the role of religious leaders in sensitizing their followers on containing the spread of COVID-19. Now, they want their support with one of the new measures they are putting in place.
I want to task you to be role models to your followers and encourage them to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. But then, let me say that even after vaccination, please continue to observe the non-pharmaceutical preventive measures.
I am glad to inform you that from this phase 2 of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout, we have introduced Sunday vaccination. This is to ensure members of the Christian community who may not have had access to the vaccine for whatever reason are given the opportunity to be vaccinated at their worship places.
One of the Christian leaders agrees with their suggestions and promises to push the Enlightenment campaign.
We know that faith leaders have the capacity, they have the moral authority. People believe in their pastors, people believe in their preachers. And when the preacher says, everybody rise, everybody stand up without saying one of objection. And so they have moral authority. And with this group of people, we can do so much.
According to the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, over 2.6 million Nigerians have been fully vaccinated. But the country needs to vaccinate at least 111 million people to achieve herd immunity. Hopefully, this engagement will help ensure that the target is met.
Meanwhile, starting from tomorrow, September 15, the civil servants in Edo State will only be permitted to enter their offices if they produce valid COVID-19 vaccination cards. Those without proof of vaccination will be sent home, after which their fate will be decided by the state government. This follows the recent announcement by the Edo State Governor, Kaduna State, asking residents to take COVID-19 vaccines or risk being barred from social gatherings.
We have trained special teams, 20 special teams. And these special teams will be spread across the 18 local government of Edo State. What we're going to do tomorrow is to assess those who have authentic vaccination card access to their government working places, and those without can go back and work from home. And government will know how to deal with all of that.
Security has been beefed up around the Armed Forces Command and Staff College in Jaji. This is to guard against any attack by bandits in the wake of a recent attack at the Nigerian Defense Academy. The commandant of the college, Air Vice Marshal Olakunle Alade, said this during his visit to the Western Naval Command.
As a military personnel, you must be conversant with the land, sea, the maritime aspect, and the air aspect. So this will afford them that opportunity. So that when you are a commander somewhere and there's a requirement for you to cooperate with your naval counterpart, you will have had experience of what it is like. I'm sure you are aware of the recent attack on Nigerian Defense Academy, and we are very, very close to each other. We have collaborated. I was even with the commandant 3 days ago. We discussed at length. We are doing a lot. We have combat patrol, and we have a quick response group. We are doing a lot in that aspect.
On his part, Flag Officer Commanding Western Naval Command, Rear Admiral Jason Bassa, explains that the exercise is to expose the students to new things about the armed forces of Nigeria and expand their horizon on the military.
This visit by the college today is to bring the students to go out on sea, at least for once in their career, particularly for the Army and the Air Force officers, so that they will have it when there is a need for a joint operation involving the three services. They have a feel, they know what it takes to ride on a ship and all what it involves to run a ship at sea. So this basically is what we are here for. But it also goes to serve our purpose of securing and assuring a safe business environment across our sea lanes of communication towards enhancing the prosperity of our nation.
Staying with security, gunmen suspected to be members of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB's Eastern Security Network, have allegedly killed an Anglican priest, Emeka Mirenu. According to the House of Assembly member representing Nkwere local government area of Imo State, Obinna Okwara, he confirmed to Channels Television via telephone that Reverend Mirenu was killed in his parsonage in Osu local government area of the state in the early hours of Tuesday, and his vehicle also set ablaze. He added that the priest was killed for allegedly bringing in military men to secure his church and secondary school under his supervision, a move the group found unacceptable. Meanwhile, the police in Imo State is yet to react to this development. Meanwhile, the Emir of Bungudu in Zamfara State, Alhaji Hassan Atayiru, has been kidnapped by bandits on the Kaduna-Abuja Expressway in Chikun local government area of Kaduna State. Our correspondent gathers that the bandits opened fire on the Emir's convoy and immobilized some of the vehicles in the convoy, killing one policeman in the process, while some of the Emir's guards sustained injuries. The kidnapped Emir served as the secretary to the Zamfara State government under the administration of Governor Abdulaziz Yari. In a related development, a soldier has been reported killed and 4 people abducted by bandits who attacked Milgoma community near the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital Zaria, also in Kaduna State. Residents of the community told Channels Television that the bandits invaded the area at about 9 p.m. Monday night and went straight to the residence of a male lecturer with the Kaduna State University with the intention to kidnap him. But as soldiers responded to a distress call from the residents, the bandits engaged them in a gun duel, shooting one of the security operatives who later died in hospital, and the body of one of the bandits was also said to have been recovered, died from bullet wounds, was discovered by soldiers. Well, following their failure to kidnap the lecturer, the bandits moved to another location within the community where they took away a woman and her 3 children. When the news at 10 returns, death toll rises to 4 in the Trademore devastating floods as more than 20 buildings are destroyed. And let's go over to our Abuja studios where Mark Ogun Yusuf has some more stories. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Millicent. Let's start with an update on the flood disaster which took a toll on the Trademore estate here in Abuja. The Federal Capital Territory Emergency Management Agency says the death toll in that tragedy has now risen to 4. However, residents there differ, insisting that about 7 bodies have been recovered from the disaster.
Residents of Trademore Estate in Lugbe axis of the Federal Capital Territory are yet to recover from the flood disaster caused by heavy downpour on Sunday, as some are still counting their losses. As the flood subsides, the residents can clearly see the extent of the damage. According to the Federal Capital Territory Emergency Management Agency, over 166 houses were affected by the disaster and over 26 vehicles were swept away. Although the agency states that 4 bodies have been recovered, residents insist 7 deaths were recorded.
This time around, it was 7 dead bodies that was evacuated. Last year, it was 1 person. But you can see the stage we are going. Who knows what will happen next if the government does not step in?
The residents pick what is left of their belongings. The The solution lies in removing the structures that are along the floodplain. The developer, however, maintains that the area is not along the waterway.
15 years ago, when the developers started building here, now this is a fact that needs to be laid out to the people. This area was under AMAC, and the developer got approval to build. Later on, when FCDA took over this area, they asked for submission as built, and it was submitted. That process is on. Approval takes a long time. Now, coming to building on waterways, I want to bring it to the notice of the public that the flooding in Tredmore is not because of buildings inside Tredmore. It's because Tredmore is at the receiving end of a lot of flood water gathering all through from Kabusa, Lokogoma, Piakasa, and when we started developing this estate, even from, okay, someone said separate secretariat, you know, when we started building here 15 years ago, all those areas were bush.
Nevertheless, the National Emergency Management Agency wants a lasting solution to the situation.
So we are looking at the possibility of evacuations. And of course, the assessment team will recommend immediate things to provide succor to the people that are affected in terms of possibly some compensations, if there's anything like that.
Aside the ad hoc committee, the authorities promised to bring some relief materials to the victims of the flood.
In the south-south region of the country, students of the University of Benin have staged a protest against what they say is an increase in charges for late payment of school fees. The management of UniBen is reported to have added an extra 20,000 naira charge for late payment of tuition, insisting that students who fail to pay their fees within the stipulated time will have to pay extra charges.
A crowd of students of University of Benin protested what they described as utterly inconsiderate the decision of the school to impose a 20,000 naira late registration levy on the students. This student wonders how she can pay the increment when it's already a big ask to pay the school fees. And now she has to worry about the increment also.
Okay, how do we address this? I cannot pay 41K. Is it because of I'm a UniBen student that I will be forced to pay 61? No.
For this male student, the increment came like a bolt from the blue.
You are asking us to top up extra 20K, which is actually impromptu on our part. It is an injustice. It is a dig deep on us. You asked us to pay school fees. We have not even afforded that school fees. Now you are topping up with extra 20K.
Our initial attempt to contact the Vice Chancellor, Professor Lilian Salami, for comments, she was unavailable. A public relations officer was also not on seat. During our later attempts to reach the VC's office, things took a turn for the worse.
We were denied access into the school premises moments ago by a band of young men we met at the gate of the University of Benin, almost manhandling my cameraman. The only option for us now is to beat a retreat, keep monitoring situations from a safe distance. Osaze Obaze, Channels Television News.
While staying in the region, in Cross River State, they may no longer export cocoa for processing once the state-owned cocoa processing factory begins production for commercial purposes. At the cocoa processing factory in Ikom local government area of the state, the governor, Professor Ben Ayade, explained that the state will be producing organic chocolate and other consumables which will be unique on the market.
Nigeria is the fourth largest producer of cocoa in the world, a position that should naturally earn it a substantial share of the global cocoa industry, valued at $100 billion. In 2019, however, the nation generated $317.5 million from cocoa exports to countries like the Netherlands and others. Ironically, in the same period, the Netherlands generated more than ×2, with $696 million from processing imported cocoa beans and exporting it as cocoa powder. Cross River State is determined to cross to this next level by establishing a cocoa processing factory in Ikom local government, an area known for cultivating and exporting large quantities of cocoa. To ensure the facility is ready for business, Governor Ben Ayade pays a visit as the staff here walk him through the chocolate-making process. From tree to bar, Ikom Chocolate is expected to bring a new variety of made-in-Nigeria organic product to consumers.
What is special about the Ikom cocoa is a special slight bitter taste. Now, most other cocoa products like chocolates, what you find is very sugary and very sweet, very fattening and very unhealthy. But the Ikom chocolate, our own chocolate brand, we try to use only the neem and get you the best of ingredients, which contains that slight bitter taste. And that taste is an antioxidant, which is particularly good for the body.
And to ensure the smooth running of the factory, the state has engaged the services of experienced hands.
The factory is actually set up to process cocoa, and in the process, they will generate cocoa butter, they will generate cocoa powder and cocoa liquor. What you're seeing here at the chocolate factory is just a small segment of it.
The plan is to halt all cocoa export from the state and divert them to this location, where the state hopes to get a bigger share of the global chocolate pie and create more jobs, thereby setting a good example for other cocoa-producing states to follow.
Well, that's all from Abuja, but how did the markets fare today? And Wanwodo is standing by with business news.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin in River State, where the government is taking the federal government to Supreme Court over the collection of the value-added tax in the state. The action follows the Court of Appeals order to maintain status quo on the collection of value-added tax pending the determination of an appeal that was filed by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. The River State government is seeking for the disbandment and setup of a new panel at the Court of Appeal for the hearing. The 10 grounds of appeal is also seeking the Apex Court to dismiss the oral application for interim injunction made by the FIRS. The Lagos State government has signed a 25 billion naira green bond market agreement with the FMDQ group and financial sector, deepening Africa to develop key infrastructure and social projects across the state. At the signing, the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the chief executive officer of the FMDQ group were among those in attendance.
Climate change is affecting all of us. It is expected to hit developing countries the hardest, especially low-lying states like ourselves. You know, we keep saying that Lagos is below the sea level. It's real, and so we need to do something about it. So climate change is here. However, despite its possible devastating effects being increasingly viewed as a gateway to new business opportunity, opening many profitable ways for investors is to help to protect the planet. One such way that we see that this can happen is through the green bonds.
An inconsistent policy announcement by Nigeria's central bank is being attributed to the continued free fall of the local currency, the naira. The president of the Association of Bureau de Change Operators, Aminu Gwadabe, who made this known in an interview with Channels Television today, listed other major factors which have also contributed to the decline of the national currency.
Some major touch in the foreign exchange market. This has started right from, I think, when the CBN removed their price tag of the dollar in their website. That fueled a lot of beliefs, concerns that there may be an official devaluation. After 3 weeks of waiting, the eventual speculation of devaluation of merger of the official raid with an e-window happen. Honestly, in recent time, these are some of the things that trigger the problem.
Today, the local stock market made a mild rebound, recovering some losses recorded in yesterday's trading session. Will Ibong has a summary.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Finally, the equities market breaks a 6-day losing streak as the bull makes a not-so-dramatic comeback. The result? The stock benchmark index rose marginally by 0.01%, but not strong enough to cross over to the 39,000 level. We also saw an uptick in the overall volume. However, total value of shares transacted declined by more than 25%. Sectoral performance was not very impressive as just the banking and industrial goods indexes recorded gains. Looking at the gainers chart, we see UPDC PLC topping that counter against 21 losers on the price chart. Traders say the current sentiment in the market is only seasonal and they're optimistic that the market will make a strong rebound. But we'll watch and see. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Willie Bong. It's back to you.
Meanwhile, in the United States, the stocks indexes were lower today, but giving up gains earlier recorded in a session after a better-than-feared inflation report. Let's take a look at the closing numbers for today. Well, that's business news. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwaudu. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. Meanwhile, electricity is steadily being restored in parts of southeast Texas, hours after Hurricane Nicholas made landfall as a tropical storm. Nearly 500,000 outages were reported in the first few hours. It brought heavy rains to some areas and gusty winds, leaving some parts submerged under floodwaters. Authorities say Nicholas should weaken further and become a depression by Wednesday. Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Thousands of Afghans have taken to the streets in Kandahar to protest against the Taliban over evictions. Local media footage showed crowds of people blocking a road in the city. The protest happened after around 3,000 families were asked to leave a residential army colony. The affected area is predominantly inhabited by the families of retired army generals. They have been given 3 days to vacate the premises. Californian voters go to the polls today to decide whether Democrat Gavin Newsom will become the 3rd state governor in U.S. history to be recalled from office.
We may have defeated Donald Trump, but we have not defeated Trumpism.
Frustration over Newsom's handling of the pandemic has fueled a Republican-led effort to remove him as governor before the end of his term. He now faces 46 challengers on the ballot, but polls show him comfortably in the lead. President Joe Biden has supported Newsom at his final campaign rally on Monday evening. Russia's President Vladimir Putin is going into self-isolation because of coronavirus cases in his inner circle. A Kremlin spokesman confirmed that Mr. Putin has not tested positive himself but will be ceasing in-person meetings. He had attended several public events on Monday when he met with Russian Paralympians, attended military exercises conducted in coordination with Belarus, and held talks with the Syrian president. Mr. Putin has been fully vaccinated with the Russian COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik V. Norway's opposition Labour Party is starting coalition talks after its landslide election victory ended 8 years of Conservative rule. Climate change is expected to be central in those discussions. Labour's leader Stoer must address voters' concerns over global warming and the country's dependence on oil exports. A prominent member of the Rwandan refugee community in Mozambique who had told police there was a plot to kill him has been shot dead. Revocat Karimangingo had been a lieutenant in the Rwandan army that was overthrown in 1994 by forces led by President Paul Kagame. The Rwandan government has been accused of targeting opponents living abroad. It has consistently denied the allegations. The UK is to delay introducing post-Brexit checks on food and farming imports to England, Scotland and Wales, blaming COVID-19 disruption and pressures on global supply chains. Measures which were expected to come in next month will now be introduced in January and July next year. A business group called the delays sensible, but called for more certainty on future inspections. The EU has implemented full checks on UK goods since the start of this year. The UK's famous rocky landmark, Stonehenge, is undergoing its first major repairs in 60 years. Laser scans had detected some erosion in the horizontal stones which have laid across the tops of the vertical stones for the last 5,000 years. Scaffolding will be erected so that workers can reach the top and replace the deteriorating mortar. The work on the prehistoric monument is expected to take about 2 weeks. And finally, the man known as the French Elvis has been honoured in Paris. A homage to Johnny Hallyday started with a mini-concert, bringing together the last 5 musicians who played alongside the rock star. They were joined by 150 bikers who had escorted Johnny's coffin down the Champs-Élysées in 2017. France's King of Rock died that year at the age of 74 after a battle with lung cancer. The statue also paid homage to one of France's most beloved rock stars. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. And now for some sports news, here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Millicent. Nigeria's table tennis star Aruna Quadri has set a new African record as the first player from the continent to be ranked in the top 15 in the ITTF ranking. Now, in the latest ranking released by the World Table Tennis ruling body, Aruna moved up 4 steps to erase Umar Assar's record of world number 16 set by the Egyptian back in 2018. Despite finishing second at the 2021 ITTF African Championships in Cameroon, the former World Table Tennis Player of the Year gained ranking points to join the elite club in the world. Reigning African champions, the Super Falcons of Nigeria and their Group A opponents, Mali, will kickstart the maiden Aisha Buhari Invitational Women's Tournament at the newly renovated Mobolaji Johnson Arena, Onikon, on Wednesday. Both teams had earlier today trained at the legacy pitch of the National Stadium in Surulere and then moved to Onikon for the evening training session to have a feel of the pitch before tomorrow's game. FIFA boss Gianni Infantino and CAF President Patrice Motsepe are being expected for the opening game that will also be witnessed by the Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, and the NFF President and FIFA Council member Amaju Pinnick, among other top dignitaries. In the UEFA Champions League, substitute Jordan Sibachio struck with the last kick of the game. A Swiss side Young Boys Football Club claimed a sensational 2-1 Champions League victory over 10-man Manchester United this evening after Cristiano Ronaldo had earlier opened the scoring for the Red Devils. The Sevilla clung on to an opening Champions League draw as RB Salzburg were made to pay for their profligacy from the penalty spot. Robert Lewandowski, the Polish international, scored a brace as Barcelona started their Champions League life without Lionel Messi with a humiliating 3-0 defeat to Bayern Munich at the Camp Nou. And Romelu Lukaku enlivened an otherwise flat Chelsea performance with a goal to beat Zenit St. Petersburg by a 0-0 and get the Blues' Champions League defence off to a winning start. Meanwhile, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp insists the former champions must hit the ground running in their first Champions League game against AC Milan, as a tough group, also including Atletico Madrid and Porto, will leave no room for error. The Reds and Milan contested 2 finals back in 2005 and 2007, with both sides winning 1 title each, and Klopp says the Group B fixture at Anfield was among the must-watch games in the first stage of the competition.
Go for it. It's just a tough group. Come on, we don't have to lie, and we knew that. And Atletico, Porto, usually champion in Portugal, if not then second. So top team. AC Milan, big history, in the best moment for years. So yeah, that's proper Champions League. So we worked obviously really hard for being part of that, and that's what we get. we are part of Champions League. There's no game where people think, think about the result or whatever. It's all about getting enough points to get through that group, and we better don't waste time. So we should start with that tomorrow night.
In athletics, British sprinter CJ Uja's B sample has tested positive, confirming the result of his initial test from the Tokyo Olympics. The 27-year-old was part of the British men's 4x100 meters relay team, which won silver at the 2020 Olympic Games. They will now almost certainly lose those medals. He was provisionally suspended when a test taken at the Games his A sample tested positive for banned substances, that's Ostarine and S23. That's a wrap on sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Tunde. And to our news just in, police operatives in Akwa Ibom State have arrested a suspected gun manufacturer. The suspect, AKK Hector David, a welder, specializes in fabricating and selling locally made rifles and other types of guns to criminals. In a statement by the spokesperson of the command, SP Odiko MacDon, he explains that the surveillance team of A Division, located at Barracks Road, while on routine stop and search operation to stem criminal activities along Uyo Village Road in environs, arrested the suspect in Nsitibom local government area with 8 locally fabricated AK-47 rifles, 1 pump action, 1 pistol, and 6 Dane guns. According to police, preliminary investigations revealed that the suspect is a welder who specializes in making and selling locally made rifles and other types of guns to criminal elements who use same in terrorizing innocent members of the public. The State Commissioner of Police has ordered for an elaborate investigation aimed at arresting other conspirators and those who enjoy his patronage. And the main news again today, the Senate considered President Muhammadu Buhari's request for fresh borrowing and approval of $4 billion, as well as 710 million euros, part of the 2018-2020 borrowing plan of his administration. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay safe.